Away from baseball here a little bit. Justin Fields had a second pro day last week and did even better than the first one. So, look, I've come out and said I'm not a big guy on the whole, whatever it is, the pro day, the workouts with your team and your basketball shorts and all of this other stuff. Like, I'm not huge into all of that. I'm not a big believer that does anything to prove who you are, because your videotape, what you've done on the field, should speak for that heading into the draft. But he has a really good pro day. Do you think he's going to have the best career out of this year's draft class?
Potentially. It depends where he goes. If you go to the Jets, I think whoever the Jets take, they're going to just run right into the ground, because that's what the Jets do. I mean, if he goes to the Niners, possibly. Great head coach with Shanahan. If he goes to Atlanta, another good chance that, yeah, he could be one of the best. I don't think with Trevor Lawrence too, I don't think Trevor Lawrence will actually be a bust, but he is going to Jacksonville, which doesn't have
He's going to be record. A bust. He's going to be a
bust. You'll never hear these words come out of my mouth ever again, but I'm going to agree with Wyatt here.
Oh,
it's because he's going to Jacksonville, and I don't think Urban Meyer's the answer. No. But with Justin, if Justin Fields goes to the right situation, 100%, I think he
I've been going back and forth with our boys over there at Infinity Sports with Wayne G and with Sully. They are huge on Trevor Lawrence is the best prospect in the history of NFL draft prospects. He's the prototype NFL quarterback.
He's up there with Peyton Manning.
But that's what I'm saying. They said the same thing about Ryan Leaf. They said he might be a better prospect than Peyton Manning before that draft. Okay? They said the same thing about Tim Couch. They said Tim Couch was a generational talent. Now, it's easy now to look at what they've done and be like, yeah, but you could have seen holes in their game and this and that. Well, no, you couldn't back then, because back then they were the same thing that Trevor Lawrence is now. You look at Trevor Lawrence in Clemson, and it's not just me saying, oh, he's going to be a bust and hope that I'm right, okay? Because that's not – I actually watch the games. I watch how the guy performs, and I watch how he plays against the good teams versus playing against the bad teams. Now – Clemson did an absolute phenomenal job in his 3 years of not playing any top 10 teams until they got to the college football playoff. They did not play one top 10 team, with the exception of this past year. They played Notre Dame, and Trevor Lawrence didn't play in that game, and they lost in double overtime. They had not played a top 10 team in the regular season. And in the college football playoff, they are 1-2 in the college football playoff in his 3 seasons against teams not named Notre Dame. Now, I'm an Irish fan. I love Notre Dame. But we all know what Notre Dame is, especially in the college football playoff. They're not as good as the SEC. They're not as good as your top-level ACC teams. I'd be damned if I think that they're even as good as some of your Big Ten teams. So, but Clemson plays in the ACC. They played a very weak ACC. Name another good team in the ACC.
You got Miami, who is up and coming.
All right. I'm talking about in 2018 to 2020. Miami hasn't been good since 1998. Neither has Florida State. What are you playing? Wake Forest, and then they're out of conference schedule. They're playing teams like Wolford. Can't even pronounce the name of the damn school. They played the Citadel. They played Charlotte, the University of Charlotte. I didn't even know they had a football team. I didn't even know they were a school. But they played the University of Charlotte. They did an outstanding job of making sure that a very talented quarterback, and that's what Trevor Lawrence is. He's a talented guy. He's been the best since high school. He was a very good college quarterback, but that does not always translate into the NFL. And I feel like Trevor Lawrence, because when you look at who he had the one really good game against an NFL-style defense, and that was his freshman year when he beat Alabama to win the national title game. Other than that, he lost to LSU in the college football playoff. And then he lost to Ohio State last year in the college football playoff. Those are the only other good defenses that he's played since he's been in college. Like, the kid, I'm telling you right now, I just don't. especially going. And Jacksonville does have some part of it. I'm not going to disagree with you. Of course, going to Jacksonville hurts your chances of being good. If you went to the New England Patriots, you'd be a different story. If you went to the San Francisco 49ers, you'd be a different story because they've got all sorts of weapons. They just need a quarterback. And maybe you could go in and you could fit in that, and then you could be but he's still, to me, let me ask you a question about Trevor Lawrence. What in his first, let's say 5 years, okay? Let's give him 5 years because that's what you get on a rookie deal, right? 5 years?
Yep.
All right. So in his first 5 years, what would you consider him to be successful?
Getting him back to the playoffs.
So in the next 5 years, they've got to be a playoff contender, is what you're saying. Okay. So if they're not a playoff contender, is he a bust, or is that because Jacksonville hasn't done anything to build around him?
If I had that kind of knowledge, I'd be a very rich man because you can't. I would say if anything, it's going to be Jacksonville not building around him because. But they tried to Marlins things. You know, what was it like?
Right.
Was 2017, they threw every dollar they had at every free agent and said, "Look, we built this great defense. Great."
Let's take Deshaun Watson for example. Then Deshaun Watson has played on some pretty bad Houston teams in the last couple of seasons, and he's still putting up amazing numbers. So right, like we still consider Deshaun Watson an elite quarterback, even though he's playing on a bad team, right?
Right. But his team is mentioned as a playoff contender every year. That is for me because it's based solely off of him alone, because he has such good talent that they say it's like he's a young version of. I'm going to just drink Aaron Rodgers.
So for me, Trevor Lawrence has to go out there, make at least 3 Pro Bowls, and be probably in the MVP conversation at least once. And, I mean, he's got to average at least 5 wins on this Jacksonville team. But this Jacksonville team is capable of winning 5 games this season.
They are completely different quarterbacks, though, Brandon. They are not.
No, I understand. I'm not comparing him. I'm saying for what he's supposed to be. This is a quarterback coming out of college that people are saying if you take if you go into a lab and you construct a quarterback and he's the best quarterback you could construct, out comes Trevor Lawrence. So if that's who Trevor Lawrence is in his first 5 years, I don't care if they're winning games in Jacksonville. I don't care if they're going to the playoffs in Jacksonville, because that could be, like we said, that could be a whole team thing. Like that could be Jacksonville not building around him. That could be Jacksonville just being a horrible organization and nobody can turn it around, kind of like the New York Jets. Or if they're not winning and they're not doing that, but he's still going to Pro Bowls, he's still putting up numbers, he's still doing the things that should be helping them win, but they're just not good enough to win, then you don't call him a bust. But if this guy goes 5 years, doesn't go to a Pro Bowl at all whatsoever, which definitely means he's not even in the MVP race. But if he doesn't go to a Pro Bowl, I mean, Mitch Trubisky went to a Pro Bowl. Like, you've got to put something on there to say, yeah, you know what, you were right, this kid was a bust. Or for me to say, yeah, I was wrong. The kid was everything as advertised. Like,
yeah, but now, like Jared Goff, do you consider Jared Goff a bust?
Yes, because I consider Jared Goff
went to a Super Bowl.
But I consider Jared Goff a guy that you will never win a Super Bowl with. He got to a Super Bowl because they had a unbelievable defense, and not only that, but everything was around him. They should have won that Super Bowl. They should have wiped the floor with the Patriots that year. They were a much better team than the Patriots, and Jared Goff pooped all over himself in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and to me, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be basically Jared Goff 2.0, except better.
Well, Jared Goff went to a Super Bowl, but so did Rex Grossman.
Oh, that's true, too. Flexi Rexy.
Yeah, but they rode the coattails of a very good special teams, a very good defense, and a decent enough run game.
But Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl that way.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's because, I mean, look, that Baltimore Ravens team was probably the second best defense of all time.
What they give up? Like it was like 9.8 points a game.
Yeah,
it was under 10.
and that's the thing too. You look at the guy who just said from Chicago. I don't want to talk about his name. I don't want to speak his name. But Jim McMahon, I always said before. You look at guys like Trent Dilfer and Rex Rose. I always said he was the worst quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl, and I'm a Bears fan. He wrote a really good defense to a Super Bowl victory, just like they did in Baltimore with Trent Dilfer, and just like a couple of other guys did getting the one. Look at Peyton Manning's last Super Bowl. That was all defense.
Yeah.
So
and they get creamed.
I don't know. For me, Trevor Lawrence, he's got to come out and he's still got to be able to put up numbers, even if they're not winning 9 games a year and getting into a playoff hunt in Jacksonville. Again, that aside, he could still, that could be a whole organization thing as opposed to a Trevor Lawrence thing. But if Trevor Lawrence is that good, he should be able to put up numbers.
Yeah, and I will agree with that. The big thing is right now that they will need to build around him. There is not a lot outside of maybe they have a decent wide receiver core. Their kid, I can't remember the kid's name. He's supposed to be their feature back last year, but he ended up with COVID and ended up missing the whole year.
Right, which is why they got rid of Fournette.
Yeah. Well, Fournette had worn out his welcome in Jacksonville as well.
Right, and then he went to win a Super Bowl with Tampa.
Right. I mean,
and became playoff Lenny.
And then he got paid again.
Yeah,
it literally did almost the same thing Corey Dillon did.
But let me ask you a question though, because does that tell you right then and there with just the Leonard Fournette situation this past season? Is this a Jacksonville thing or was this a Leonard Fournette thing?
I think honestly it's a Jacksonville thing
because it's got to be right.
Once is okay. Twice, it's the whole shame on you. Second time shame on me. Third time if it happens, yeah. Now the pattern's been established with them, and obviously, like with quarterbacks, they haven't had great luck with quarterbacks. Who's the best quarterback in Jacksonville's history? The very first quarterback they had, Mark Brunell.
Brunell. I was trying to think of his name. I couldn't think of it. But yeah, Mark Brunell.
Got traded from Green Bay. He was Favre's backup and got traded to Jacksonville and had a nice 8-year run. Went to 2
They almost went to the Super Bowl there. Was it their first or second season?
No, it was like their third or their fourth season that they went. But even then, I mean, they had Jimmy Smith, they had Keenan McCardell, they had Fred Taylor. The offense was just ridiculous. They actually had a pretty good defense then too. Yeah, but I think they went to 2 AFC title games with them. But they don't have a history of being a well-run franchise. The well-run franchises are always going to come back and be competitive. I'll drink again, but here, Green Bay went through their period in the 70s and the 80s where they were just a downtrodden. But in the 50s, 60s, 90s, 2010s, and now into the 2020s, they've been a really steady organization. The Pittsburgh Steelers,
they have. They've been a steady losing in the NFC title organization.
The Steelers are always there again. It's an organization that has stability. That's the biggest problem with me. And I think that if anything hinders Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be the stability of that organization because they don't have one. They keep trying to build that foundation, and all it does is crumble underneath them every single time they try to do it. And as soon as things go south, thing, right? Urban Meyer will bolt because that's his pedigree right there.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like NFL teams, like organization wise, it's got to start with the owner. Because you look at Pittsburgh, I mean, they've had like 4 coaches or 5 coaches in the entire organization history of the organization, and the Bears have been through 5 in the last 10 years. Like, so I mean. It's got to start with the owner. You've got to build a solid foundation. You've got to build an organization where players want to play and coaches want to coach. And you've got to show loyalty to those guys. And that's something that they've built in Green Bay. That's something that they've built in Pittsburgh. And for the life of me, I don't understand why in Green Bay, because you look at Brett Favre and you look at Aaron Rodgers, and back-to-back, those were your 2 quarterbacks, your 2 franchise quarterbacks, and you've gotten 2 Super Bowls out of them. And those two guys really should have won more. I think they built better around Aaron Rodgers than they did around. Built better around Brett Favre than they did around Aaron Rodgers. I think Brett Favre had more weapons. He just threw for a lot more interceptions.
Well, I do too, but you got to look at. You had a different GM then, though, too. You had Ron Wolf, who was like a freaking draft genius.
Yeah, but the GM, nothing. It's still got to come down. It's still got to start with the owner, right? The owner's got to give you the money to spend.
Green Bay doesn't have an owner. I own the Green Bay Packers.
Oh yeah, it's true. That's why
there is no owner because it's owned by the community.
Aaron Rodgers. You heard it here first.
Rodgers.
Torrey decided to kick the field goal.
That's it. I'm his boss.
Torrey, would he have made it to the corner of the end zone?
I don't think so.
Oh, you're out of your mind.
I don't think he would. I don't think he'd have made it.
I think it's just your Packer fandom. You don't want to believe that he would have made it because you don't want to say he made the wrong decision.
No,
you can't go against your guy because I'm telling you,
LaFleur should have went for it still on fourth down.
He makes the corner of that end zone easy, and he discount double checks, and they go to the Super Bowl, and they probably win it.
No, I don't think he makes it. That or if he gets close, he gets creamed by the safety. We lose Rodgers for the year. And now next year, we are starting Jordan Love because Aaron's still out with a torn ACL.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hindsight's always going to be 2020. But yeah, I don't think he would have made that corner.
I still think he would have made that corner. But anyway.
Thank you for checking out that clip. If you're interested in watching the full show, the link is in the description. Click on it, hit that like button, share it with a couple friends, and as always, Man Hour Nation, rise up.